Hey, what's up, everyone? I just wanted to talk real quick about my passions, as always, voluntarism, and my proposed method for helping to move America and/or other countries toward a more voluntary society. So I'm just taking a quick break from my bar review studying. And if you're not already familiar with the idea of voluntarism, it's just a philosophical principle that, at its core, desires that every single human action is as voluntary and free as possible. What that means is that coercion or the threat of force or of death or the actual use of force leading to injury or death is not used. And what that really describes is very often the practice of what governments do at the baseline, taxation. Taxation is, of course, the threat of force ultimately by the IRS and police that if you don't pay them money for a service that they, going to go provide, everything from, you name it, national security, all the way down to, water, police, whatever might be provided within your city. They say that if you don't pay them for those services via taxes, they will take away your property, your home, they'll garnish your wages, things like that. And why that's a problem for voluntarist thought is when there are goods and services provided without a contracting and assenting knowing party that smacks of unreasonableness as well as theft. Essentially, if you were to compare it to someone who comes and mows your lawn while you're at work and then gives you a bill at your door even though you didn't ask for it, while it might be nice that your lawn is mowed and you certainly would want that, that they did it without your permission and sent you the bill is not freely assented to or contracted for. And ultimately, taxation at its base level, monopoly of force via taxation, creates that problem that simply because someone provides you a service before you can even think to assent to the service, you're a minor leading to an adult, that means that you are obligated for that service. And so that's wrong. And the change in philosophy afterward would be that any service provided to you without your consent, assent, is just given to you at the free will and grace of that person. In other words, if somebody, on a microcosm or a microeconomic scale, if someone mows your lawn and you say, that's great, but I'm not going to pay you, I didn't ask for this, you would have no duty to pay them. Likewise, services provided by government, there should be no duty to pay performed at the threat of force. In other words, if that same guy who mowed your lawn came to your house and held a gun to your head and said, I'm going to take your vase right now because you're not paying me for this lawn, you'd say that's ridiculous. But that's exactly what the government does, whether it's real property, foreclosing your home for not paying taxes, or garnishing your wages, or taking other assets in order to pay back taxes if you didn't pay. And obviously, anybody who has their head screwed on right would pay their taxes out of fear of not getting deeply screwed over by the IRS. So how the not-for-profit government model, as I propose, seeks to ameliorate this problem is by turning government into a not-for-profit. Everything that the government does is on a non-monopolized basis. In other words, anything that they constitutionally would have a monopoly on, for example, a post office, would no longer be there. That includes justice, police, anything, national security. They wouldn't have a monopoly on it. It's not that they wouldn't cease to exist, they just wouldn't have a monopoly on it. Thereafter, they would also have to raise all funds voluntarily through contributions. The IRS would no longer be the Internal Revenue Service, it would be the IFS, Internal Fundraising Service, and individuals could donate freely and voluntarily and earmark their gifts to a certain department. And of course, at the beginning, it wouldn't be like super specific. In other words, you couldn't say, I give this to the federal court system, but not to rape cases, because that would be too tough to manage. The idea would be if someone could, for example, donate to Department of Homeland Security, which I hope they wouldn't, but I'm just saying Department of Homeland Security, maybe the Department of Education, maybe you can donate, generally national defense, you can donate, if you took it down at a local level, you can donate to your local courts, local police. That's what you'd be able to do. You'd be able to freely and voluntarily donate. And this is not a strange idea, as it is, firemen already have volunteer firefighters, they have fundraisers, police have fundraisers. You often see people with stickers in the back of their car, that said, Colonel or police, donor, whatever the years they donated. So it's not unusual. People already donate to different government entities, especially local ones, especially the ones that they feel connected to. And that's what the government has to do as a not-for-profit, is they have to promote themselves, show value, and they have to really attract people by being open and honest. If they hide what they're doing, they're just going to get detractors. If they can't prove their worth, just like a regular not-for-profit, then people are going to find other solutions. And I talk about this in my article, which I post below. I'm just going to quickly go over the little tidbits of objections. People complain, oh, what about the free rider problem? Well, that's already exists, as you already know. Anybody knows American economics knows that the business and rich, top 2-ish% pay like a good portion, 30 to 50% of the taxes, depending, how we're calculating things. But essentially, a very small minority, less than 10%, pretty much pays almost all of the government services. And, with people, the amount, I think it was like 45 million people on, welfare plus unemployment, it's very clear to see that there's a big divide between those who actually pay most of the money and those who don't. And usually it's business owners through taxes or, the rich and stuff like that. Very often, businesses are the ones being taxed. And that's not necessarily always the rich. Business owners, a small business owner could have a huge amount of income, and they get all the money as the owner, and so when they're taxed through, it looks like they're have a lot of money, but really they're paying it out to their employees individually. Short being that as it is, there's already an inequality. So it's not a strange idea to say, oh well, there's going to be an inequality of payment now, and then people worry about corruption and things like that, but it's already pretty corrupt as it is. If you haven't noticed with how campaigns are financed and who gets revolved in and out of the cabinet and all of the different departments, regulatory departments. So I think that if there's more corruption, because those people are not going to donate, they're going to look for alternative means. And then of course there's the wondering of like, oh well, if someone donates to something in particular, they're going to control it. But it's always the same old. As long as everything's open courtrooms and things like that, and as long as the general system is able to be, transparently reported on. In other words, if the government doesn't, people are not going to want to donate. If they do act with transparency, then that incentivizes more people to donate because they can track how their money is being used. And what's the best part about this is that very quickly it's going to determine what agencies are really wanted. I think that you'd find if you look at disapproval ratings across Congress, the presidency, and even the Supreme Court, people are just generally not happy with what the government's doing. And I think the real way to kind of put value is to just open it up to free-range donations. And of course, there's going to be people that are not going to want to pay, but you know what? There's a big incentive for businesses and those who have more money to pay. Why? Because they have a lot more to lose. And as it is, even places like Walmart boasts where they donate their money in the community. So it'd be the same type of thing. Businesses would put pride or put up notices that they donated to the fire department or the police or to even national security because they want to look good, attract customers. I mean, this whole public relations concept behind the sale of goods, the idea that you're doing something good for the community, is already mainstream. So it's not really that weird to think about if the government or businesses were to work in that way. One accepting the donations, the other promoting that they donate as a way to attract customers. And so I think that what would happen under this type of system is slowly governments would shrink in areas that people really didn't give a crap about, and people would feel more satisfied knowing that they earmarked their money to where they thought it was going to produce the most value. A lot of people would be happier if their money didn't go to funding wars. Some people would be happier if it didn't go to funding entitlement programs and things like that. So that's just my little brief synopsis over not-for-profit government and how that flexes with voluntarism, the idea that you want to try to remove as much coercion as possible, and it really gets to one of the biggest roots of government coercion is the power to tax. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask. I posted again my link to an article that develops this more, and we will talk soon. All right, take care, guys.